The Zimbabwean government says it will cull 200 wild elephants to feed communities facing severe hunger during the worst drought in 4 decades. The meat will go to communities also suffering the effects of the drought. Kopano Masilo, the head of International Federation of the Red Cross and Red Crescent Pretoria Cluster Delegation, joins us now for more. A very good afternoon to you, Kopano. Thanks very much for your time. Just how grave is the situation from what you know?
Thank you, Vuyo, and the viewers for having us. So, as you said, that the drought situation, maybe just briefly to give a bit of some background. I think the public is almost aware that from late last year, when the farming season was quite at the peak, most countries in Southern Africa lost a lot of good rain at the right time of the cropping season. So this led to severe food security situation in the whole region and in most countries. So our IFRC Pretoria cluster covers the 5 countries, which is Namibia, Lesotho, Eswatini, Botswana, South Africa. And maybe I will speak more about these countries and the situation here. But from that time, just to give a background, that what happened is that in some countries, there was very small rainfall, which led to crop failure, while in other countries, it was excessive rain, which also led to the same effect, and also very high temperatures. So following this situation, we saw SADC declaring food security emergency in the region, estimated for about 61 million people in the whole region. So we can confirm that in the countries where we work, the situation is dire and it needs attention. Let me say, for example, if we talk about Namibia, we have seen the information that 40% of the population will need immediate humanitarian assistance in terms of food and other interventions, maybe health and water assistance. In Lesotho, as an example, again, the estimated population which needs immediate humanitarian assistance is 30%. This is because in both of these countries, I think we can also talk about Eswatini, where it's about 22% of the population. So, of course, in South Africa and Western Cape and the Northern Cape provinces, that's where the drought had the impact, and in Botswana as well. So we are talking about a situation where the crop failure, I think, let me be specific, maybe talk more about maize, which is staple food in most of these countries, where the crop failure is estimated over 30 to 40, 50%, depending on country. So that means with the so small harvest for commercial farmers or even for subsistence consumption in the communities, this also created an inflation situation where food prices increased for over 30%. So this is a situation which we are dealing with, which needs immediate attention. As you say, Vuyo, in other countries we have seen the information or the news from Zimbabwe and I think Namibia as well, which is what you said at the beginning about the elephants being used to assist. But of course, we from the Red Cross, that is not one of our interventions, but it's a testament that the drought situation is having the real impact in communities, and there is more that has to be done. And we have launched emergency appeals to try to assist, but there's a lot that everybody has to pay attention, and we have to rescue the situation in the communities.
I mean, obviously, countries will be better than others in coping with this and in assisting those that are vulnerable. I'm trying to get my head around how culling 200 wild elephants, whether in fact that is going to take care of those those people.
Although maybe that is the government intervention, and we may not have direct information as to how far will this go. But we can imagine that it might be a drop in the ocean, because communities which need assistance, if SADC projected such a big number, and if I made an example of the 3 countries where more than 20, it's ranging from 22% to over 50% of the people who need help, we can imagine that amount of meat may be very limited, but it will help, I think, depending on the communities that will benefit from that program. In our situation as the Red Cross, we have started operations where we are doing cash transfers so that people can have some money to buy food. But also, we also recognize that even in our own situation, it's a very small contribution that we have so far. Anyway, the drought operation is a long investment, it's a long operation. It has started. We recognize that from early this year, I think SADC made the declaration around May, and most governments followed that. Maybe May, June, July, different governments were making declarations of food insecurity in their countries. So that means from that period until the next farming season, which will be around winter next year, when we expect communities to have new harvest, it means operations will be going. So you can imagine, I think with that intervention, it will be limited. That is why most governments have made declarations for international community to assist, and we are contributing. I'm sure there are other agencies doing the same, but as a region, it is a situation which we cannot afford to neglect, because I think most of countries are barely recovering from COVID. That means the economic performance cannot safeguard the difficulties communities are saving, and we need to do more.
How easy is it, I mean, these days for organizations like yours to mobilize resources for situations like this, especially on the back of, as you pointed out, the COVID-19 pandemic?
I cannot say it's easy. I think the global humanitarian situation is very active. Just beyond COVID, we see that in parts of the world where there are active wars, the Middle East and some parts of Africa and Europe, those situations are attracting a lot of humanitarian funding, because the war situations are more urgent, and also maybe they get more communication attention. And drought as a slow onset situation, it gets a limited amount of attention, but I'm happy that with Newzroom Afrika today we are talking about this topic. It is an effort that has to continue, but it is not easy. This part of Africa as well, Southern Africa, is considered relatively doing well. So the donor institutions are also trying their best, but I think there's more that have to be done. If I tell you about our organization, IFRC have given some funding to our Red Cross national societies to start operations. But by way of estimation, I think our operations are only maybe less than 10% of the needs that are on the ground. And we are now working towards mobilizing resources, which may reach maybe 12% of the needs. That means there's a lot of gap that still has to be filled. Of course, other institutions are also there, but I think we have an opportunity to do better. And I must say that most of the funding situation in Africa and in our situation also, it comes from international donor agencies. So we have an opportunity to cooperate more as Africans, as corporates in Southern Africa and other institutions, to bring resources together. But as we say, drought is a tricky disaster because it's slow onset. Maybe it doesn't make a lot of sense until somebody can witness what communities are going through. Losing your own assets because you need to have something to eat is a painful experience.